Anyone that knows me will tell you that I'm a bit of a sucker for a hot chocolate or a chocolate milk, and I've been lucky enough over the years to have gone to a couple of training camps in Mallorca, and they sell this there, and it's my favourite chocolate milk. And my friend Chris, who did the Boardman Tunnel trip with me, or rather I did it with him, bought me back this from Mallorca a little while back, and I'm going to have it today because I gave up hot chocolate and chocolate milk for Lent, and that ends today, so I'm going to have this because I think I've earned it. Hi, so how's your week gone? I hope it's gone as well as mine. I've had a thoroughly enjoyable time riding my bike, both on the turbo and out in the wilds, in the real world. And running and doing a lot of strength and conditioning to support the running and the cycling and also the swimming. And these vlogs were always started to talk about my training. That was the whole point of them when I started them 98 weeks ago, which seems completely bonkers. And I never really talk about what I do in my sessions very much, so I thought I'd talk about that a bit this week. But rather than just talk about what I'm doing in my sessions, just try and explain a little bit of why and the reasons behind it. So let's go back to the sort of starting point of most people's introduction into doing sport, and they quite rightly try and extend how long they can swim, bike or run for, or increase the distance, which pretty much goes hand in hand, right? So somebody might decide they're going to start running, and they might run for 15 minutes, and then the next time they go for a run they might try and run for 20 minutes, or they may try and run 5k and then the following week might try and run 6k, and that's pretty standard stuff that most people kind of get into, and they usually do that in a what might feel like a bit of a push for them, but actually it's in a relatively steady state. They're not going all in, and they're not really jogging it really slowly. They're kind of doing it in a bit of a grey area of pacing. But after a little bit of training, or maybe they speak to somebody in the know, they'll become aware of some different types of training that you can add into it. Now, I think there are kind of three main areas that most people can get into with their training. One is the kind of basic just stamina work, which is what most people kind of get into at the beginning. Then you can add some speed and some strength work into it, which I'm going to talk about in this video a little bit and the next video that I put out. And then the third video I'm going to put out in this series is going to look at the further block of all the extra bits that you can put on top of it, the cherry on the cake, if you like, that will really get you the most benefits you possibly can get. So the three basic types of training that you want to be doing to get faster in your races are the stamina work that most people do anyway, so the longer, slower runs, your strength work, so they might be hill reps, and you want to do your speed work, which is your higher interval intensity. But before we get into actually what those sessions comprise of, let's try and have a look at what it is that we're trying to do when we train. Now, as I've said many times before on these videos, speed is a byproduct of efficiency. I made a little video, which I'll link up here, that talks about how efficient running or efficient bike riding or swimming, or even designing a car engine that's efficient, will result in faster speed. But what do we mean by more efficiency? Well, in each sport you're going to find people talking about specific things. So it might be stroke count in swimming, it might be gearing in cycling, or cadence in running. But efficiency essentially is a combination of two factors in every single sport. So for example, let's look at swimming. If we use strokes in swimming, and by strokes what we're referring to is your right arm entering the water and then your right arm entering the water again. That's what we consider to be one stroke. So if we think about from one arm pull to the next one in swimming, and we could think of one revolution in cycling. Now that's one pedal stroke in cycling would be your right foot, say at 12 o'clock, all the way around to your right foot returning to 12 o'clock in cycling. And if we think about one stride in running, and that's where your right foot is landing and then your right foot lands again. That's what we would refer to as one stride when we're talking about running. Let's take all of those measurements, so one stroke in swimming, one stride in running, and one revolution in cycling, and we think about how many of those happen per minute. What we would collectively call that would be cadence. It's our limb speed, if you like. And the other measure we need to think about is the distance that we travel per stroke, revolution, or stride. So how far are we going every time our limb pulls us along? And those two numbers are what can help us work out how efficiently we're racing or training. So While swimming isn't the most renowned for its kind of varied technology as we get with running or cycling, there is a metric that's commonly overlooked by triathletes that's a direct output of stroke length and stroke rate, and we call it SWOLF. You'll find it's a Garmin metric, and it's short for swim golf, and it's basically essentially your swim time per length in seconds. So if you're swimming a 25 meter length, how long it took you to swim those 25 meters, and that's added to how many strokes it takes you to swim that length. So let's have a quick look at this swim session that I did not long before we had the lockdown. And what you'll see here is that I averaged for the entire session about 136 per 100. So that works out to be 24 seconds per length. So each 25 meters I was swimming was taking me on average 24 seconds to swim. Now, if we look at how many strokes it was taking me to swim each length, you'll see that my Garmin was telling me I was taking 9.7 strokes per length. Now, we could round that up to 10. So obviously, if we add 24 seconds to 10 strokes, we get a SWOLF of 34. Now, obviously, we could do the same for cycling. We could use our gear size. Now, the reason we use gear size is because that's how far we travel per foot revolution. Indeed, before we used to say a gear as a crank size and cassette size, i.e. 5611, we used to refer to gear size as to how far a bike would travel in that gear. For example, it might be 134.69 inches would be the name of the gear, we would call it, because one revolution would make the bike travel 134.69 inches. If we combine that gear size with the cadence, it would work effectively as a measure for riding our bike. And it would be the same with running. So how many seconds it would take us to travel 100 meters added to how many strides it took to travel 100 meters. And that would work as a metric. The reason why this works as a measure of efficiency is because it takes both sides of the equation into account. So let's try and put this into some sort of context. If you're all out copying the pros on your TT bike and you're riding a 5811, that's all very cool, but if you're only able to turn that out over at 58 revs per minute, then you're going to be traveling at 37.4 kilometers an hour, and it will cause a huge amount of muscular fatigue. 52/17 isn't quite such a cool gear ratio, but at a cadence of 97 RPM, that would see you traveling a fraction faster at 37.6 kilometers. And this taxes the cardio system more, and that's why we need to train more than one system. And it would be the same for running. So you might travel nearly 2 meters per stride like Mo Farah, but if your cadence is half of his, there's just no point. Somebody running at his cadence but taking half his stride length will be running just as fast as you. So for swimming, we need to think about getting into distance per stroke. And as we haven't got any hills in the pool or sea or the lake, we can use paddles or sponges or drogues to pull them along and to increase our strength work. And this is where landside training that we're all faced with having to do at the moment comes in. And then we also need to think about cadence work as well, turning those limbs over as quickly as possible and doing both elements of those along with our endurance or our stamina work. And on the bike, a focus on fast leg turnover, fast cadence, along with strength work, i.e. our hills and our low gearing work, is also going to see an improvement. And with running, well, don't confuse speed work with running fast work. Speed work should really imply limb speed, so how fast your limbs are turning over. And if we work on those sessions, our speed sessions, and you combine that with your hill work, so focusing driving hard for short reps rather than more aerobic hill work, or running with a parachute, you're going to see an improvement because that's going to work on your limb speed and your strength work. Physiologically, of course, we're all made up slightly differently. So people's limbs are different lengths, their fitness makeup is different between aerobic and anaerobic thresholds, as well as different body strengths, and each different event holds a different distance or a different terrain. So there's no one size fits all for cadences or gears or strokes or stride lengths or anything. But to get faster, one of those numbers, and ideally both of those numbers, needs to change. What we've got to make sure is that one of those numbers doesn't get worse. That's the important factor when we're doing our strength and our speed work. So in my next video, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the actual training that you can be doing to kind of work on these areas. But this is why we do speed, stamina and strength work. If you just consider your long, slow run, your hill reps and your intervals as a basic for running, that's the reason why we do those sessions, because the stamina will build up our aerobic base, our hill work will develop our strength so we can travel further per stride, and our speed sessions, so long as you focus on it being limb speed sessions, sessions means our cadence will improve. And when we combine all of those factors, we're going to get quicker. We're going to become more efficient, and that speed will be a byproduct of us traveling more efficiently. So my sessions this week have focused primarily on those. I've done a long run, I've done a 12k run at a very, very slow tempo, slower than most people would want to run. It's slow enough to talk to somebody or to sing the chorus of your favourite song or something. And for me, at the moment in my fitness level, it's around about 6:30 to 6:45 per kilometre. Super, super slow. So that's my stamina session. My speed session involves me at the moment, because I'm trying to work on that, is just 1 minute intervals where I'm running as fast effectively as I generally can, and then I'm going back to my slower speed for 2 minutes. So I'll do between 6 and 8 of those where I do a 1 minute effort and then a 2 minute jogged recovery. And then the last bit of work that I'll be doing with my running is some hill reps, but I'm also doing some tempo runs at the minute, just to try and build that speed in there a little bit more. And I'm doing the same on the bike. So for my one bike ride outside a week, I'm doing a long, slow ride. And then on my turbo sessions, I'm doing some low gearing to replicate kind of hill work for my strength work. And I'm also doing some faster reps, but for a shorter amount of time to try and get the cadence up. And I'm trying to ride as constantly as I can at 91 RPM, because that's kind of my comfortable race tempo. My RPM when I'm doing TTs has always been around about 91 RPM, and I'm focusing on trying to make sure that that's my limb speed that I'm working on. So that's really my training broken down this week. And what I'll look at next week is the actual physiological aspects that go into doing all of that training and what's happening. And then in the third video, I'm going to add in all the other extra factors, so that you've got level 1 just working on stamina work, where most people come into it. And then we've got what we looked at today, which is that stamina work combined with speed work and with strength work. And then the following week, we're going to look at the sciences and the psychology and the food intake and the nutrition and all those kind of things. So I hope you're having a safe week, and you're kind of getting into the swing of things with all the weirdness that's going on at the moment. And I will see you on the next video. Take care, and I'll see you what I think will be video 99, which doesn't seem possible after all this time that we're nearly at 100 videos. So if you have enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you take the time to hit the like button. Also put a comment below about how your training's developed over this time in isolation, and also hit the subscribe button with the notifications bell. And every time I put a new one of these videos out on a Monday, and when I do the extra little videos that I do from time to time, that will be sent to you as a notification. And have a great week, and I'll see you for video 99. Take care. Cheers.